me ask you a quick question regarding the outer aspect of the moon, which I always felt was interesting. If a meteor hits the moon, it causes a scarring. But what's interesting about the moon is that there are many round, completely round, concave crevices, as though it were carved out. Now, some say in the you might mention the Bible, that there are the wars in the heaven that were recorded before recorded time, or talked about before recorded time. Right. Could these be sort of almost the laser force beam weapons of what they call the war in heavens, since they've made such perfectly round circles? What's your take on that versus the scarring?
Well, there's a few things really. It's quite possible that it was built like that in a way as almost a form of camouflage. Because and I don't say that's what it is. I'm saying that's a possibility because of this reason. What comes up again and again, ancient and modern, is that this predator race, which is feeding off humanity, and feeding off the resources of the earth, by the way, because that moon's got no resources. They have to use the target planet for resources to survive, etc. And I think myself that there's something big time involved in gold and what they need up there. And if we quickly go back to that Kreda Mutwa story, he says that what the Zulu legend says about the moon is that two reptilian creatures with, quote, scaly skin like a fish, as the legend goes, called Wawani and Mpanku, rolled the moon across the heavens, brought it to where it is, and it caused catastrophe on Earth. And these were two brothers. And these brothers were called water brothers. They were symbolized by various things relating to water, which in the next book I think I'll be able to explain a major aspect about water, because there's big time something we need to know, and I think I now know about the oceans, but I've got to follow it up a bit more. But what am I talking about? As you well know, Robert, I'm almost now telling the story from the Sumerian tablets of Enki and Enlil, and at least Enki was very associated symbolically with water, and the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki were, according to the Sumerian tablets translated by people like Sitchin, wanted gold. And they turned humanity into a sort of slave race initially, I say by tinkering with their genetics. That's in the ancient accounts all over the place, the interbreeding between the gods and humans and the Nephilim and all that stuff in Genesis. And it was to mine for gold. I mean, if you go back to Africa, there's evidence of gold mining in Africa 100,000 years ago. And interestingly, the oldest form of known worship is worship of the serpent. They found again in Africa, in Botswana, on the border there, in the very place where the Sand people, better known as the Bushmen, say humanity was first created, but that modern humanity was created by the great python. And they found evidence there, mainstream scientists and researchers I'm talking about, of serpent worship 70,000 years ago. And there was another book by a guy called John Bathurst Dean. He was a reverend, and he wrote a book about serpent worship in the 1930s. I think it was 1933. And as you know, in that period of like the 1920s, 1930s and stuff, some really great stuff was written. That has proved to the test of time, because the lid wasn't quite on so much then. And he details in that book that everywhere you look, there's serpent worship, and the serpent worship and the intervention of the serpent was related in some form to what is known as the fall of man.
Right.
Now, for me, what is called the fall of man, or the fall of humanity, was when the moon came and basically wiped the slate clean, rebooted human society and everything. And when I look at this story, and I look at the ancient accounts of what humanity was like and the world was like, and then how it all changed, I now think of the Avatar movie, because it seems to me if you take the blue people in the Avatar movie and that Pandora moon to be the Earth, and humans as we were before, they had that incredible connectedness. Everything was connected to everything else. They could see the unity of everything between nature, animals, and people. And then in came this left brain, clever but so stupid human military, because they wanted what? Not to experience and celebrate the connectedness of everything, but there were some resources under there,
exactly,
which are worth money, mate. You're
dictating a relocation.
Exactly. And
art imitates life.
Yeah.
Same thing in Iraq.
Exactly.
We're here to get it. We can relocate them peaceably, or we can do it by force. But whatever, our agenda stands.
Yeah, because we want the resources, because this is our level of awareness, like that big, you know. So if you take that blue people society to be the Earth before the moon came, in what I'm suggesting,
right,
and then that mentality that came in and tried to destroy that whole society in the Avatar movie, to be the mentality that came in with the moon, I think something pretty much close to that theme has happened. And of course, since then, it's that mentality that has controlled and built the structure of control that has become what we call humanity ever since. But of course, the moon matrix takes it another stage further.
We say that, we were discussing earlier that not all of our thoughts are our own. We're actually sharing the space with other entities. I often say, even in my own lectures, that we're walking with a committee. And this unseen committee hears what we're thinking. How we perceive ourselves is one way, but it's really the way they see us in the field around our body that dictates to them what we really are. And when we talk about this committee, I couldn't help but feel that as we get closer to the birth of this particular conjunction we're all concerned about, which is the winter solstice in 2012 and leading beyond, there's going to be an opening up of the coding. The DNA structure within the human body is based on 64 codons, of which only 20 are turned on. And then since in the last 25 years, we've seen there are some people actually with 24 that are turned on. Now, my feeling is that with these conjunctions that are happening, that we're getting to a point of being a slightly more telepathic society because of our DNA structure being changed by a series of these conjunctions that are unfolding. And that moon plays a very integral part in that. As far as that, do you believe that we're headed towards being more telepathic, that there will be some that will be able to see, sense, and hear on a deeper level, while others won't have a clue, and they will deny anything has happened?
Well, I can talk about that at length, because that is a major theme in my work. But if I could come to that in a second, but just picking up what you said about the moon there, just very quickly. I'll tell you how I see it. In all the 20 years that I've been doing this so far, I've worked across endless different subjects and interconnected them. But the biggest one is, what is reality? What is reality? How are we experiencing reality? Who are we? What is this? Because unless we understand those basic questions, how can we understand anything else?
Right.
You know, you can't. And what I'm suggesting very strongly is this, and I do back it up with an enormous amount of evidence, is that we live in the equivalent of the wireless internet. And it's like a virtual reality universe. And we are decoding the wireless internet, what I call the cosmic internet, not through the desktop computer, but through the body computer. So in this room now, this hotel has the wireless internet. Well, where the bloody hell is it, right? Where is it? I can't see it. But if I get that computer there and I tune it in,
it'll find it.
Out of the unseen, not only comes something on my screen, what comes on my screen is part of a global collective reality called the World Wide Web, which someone in South Africa or Brazil or Australia or Asia can pick up the same as I can in this room in California. And we create our own reality. That's what we're told, and I accept that to a very large extent. But people say to you, what if you create your own reality? How come both of us can see that lamp? Both of us can see that book or this chair? Because, as Einstein said, reality is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. And the reason it's persistent is because we're constantly decoding this cosmic internet, this waveform level of information, which is the basic construct of this reality.
Right.
This, what I call the holographic reality, what other people call physical, is merely the decoded expression of this information, waveform, vibrational information. And so in China, they can't get chunks of the internet, large chunks of the World Wide Web, the collective reality, because it's firewalled off. The computers won't read it. What I'm suggesting very strongly is that what's coming from the moon, not just the fact that it's physically there, but that as we've discussed, has an enormous impact. I mean, just something you mentioned earlier, the Zulu legends say that women didn't menstruate before the cataclysm, before the moon came. It was a totally different genetics. I'm saying that what's coming from that moon is like a blocking frequency. And it is preventing us, and I say that it accesses the body computer through the reptilian brain. One of the major influences on human behavior. It's where we get the fear of not surviving and anxiety and about not surviving, not just physically, but financially, in terms of our reputation, our relationship, our job, all this stuff. And we're being suppressed by this blocking frequency. And the information, it seems to me, that we are picking up and decoding, what I call the cosmic internet, it's coming to us in the form of photons from the suns, probably from other sources too, but from the suns, and in this case, our sun. And it was interesting that the Zulu legends say that before the moon came, the moon was perceived as female. I think they used to call it Langa, the desired one. And when the moon came, first of all, the Zulu legends say when the moon came, humanity went crazy in the head. And also that they started perceiving the sun as male and the moon as female. And this is part of what I call the hack